Hello everybody, my name is Ryan and welcome to my channel, Reading to Fluency. Now, Reading to Fluency is a channel that is based all around learning languages through the act of reading. Now, the reason that I have decided to kind of use this as the basis for my channel is actually twofold. One is that over the last few years of attempting to learn Japanese and German a little bit, which has been an ongoing process of about 6 years, and been a complete fail for the most part, I discovered that the reason that I was failing was because I was not studying in the right way for me. Now, what I mean by that is that I was not studying in a way that was motivating to me. I was not studying something that I was interested in. What I've always been interested in ever since I was a kid has been reading, has been stories. And it isn't even necessarily confined to reading, just stories in general. Reading both novels and plays and historical like autobiographies, biographies, things like that, just anything. But also TV shows, movies, plays, Broadway musicals. I just love stories. And I decided to use my love of stories and combine that with my love of language learning in order to be able to learn a language to fluency. And the whole idea here is that I want to go from zero, practically zero in my case in some instances, with, say, Japanese and Spanish, all the way up to a mid-intermediate to a high intermediate, hopefully. Maybe even advanced. I don't know. We'll have to see how it goes. Solely through reading stories and getting listening comprehension. But the main bulk of my actual study time is going to be through reading. That's going to be how I learn vocabulary. That'll be how I learn grammar and all of that different kind of stuff. One of the biggest reasons that I chose this, like I said, was that I have always loved stories. It was also because in doing my research around this kind of story learning method, like Ollie Richards has described as story learning, Robin McPherson talks about it, and different people have talked about it. In doing my research surrounding this, I decided to kind of make a little mini attempt at using reading to learn a little bit of Spanish when I switched from Japanese, which I'll explain in a little bit. And what I discovered was that I was more interested in what I was doing than when any of the times that I had been studying Japanese before. And I was retaining more, and I still have been retaining more than I did. I'm able to understand more when I listen to a song in Spanish or something along those lines. Now, a little bit of background on me. I have been attempting to learn Japanese off and on for the past 6 years. And I tried German a couple of times in there as well, with similar failings. And in a future video, I will talk all about my failures with Japanese and why I think that happened and things like that. But suffice it to say that I failed. I completely failed. Complete bomb. Just didn't work. So instead, what I have decided to do is, because I was going to switch up how I was doing things, and I was going to switch into this reading story learning method, I decided that I wanted to completely switch languages, partially because I felt like changing within Japanese, changing from studying one way to studying this other way, after having studied so many ways before, like my brain couldn't wrap itself around the idea at the time for Japanese. And so I decided instead that I would pick up a different language. Now, the way that I decided to do this, or the way that I went about doing this, is literally I sat down and had a conversation with my wife, and we decided, based on just me telling her what languages I wanted to learn, which is a whole, laundry list of languages, because I just love languages. And we decided that it would be most useful and pertinent, and I would get the most practice if I were to decide to study Spanish. There are numerous Spanish-speaking people around my area here. And so it affords me a lot of opportunities to speak Spanish. And so that's why I decided to choose Spanish as the language I wanted to learn. Now, that doesn't mean I'm giving up on Japanese. Like, that is not happening. I'm still going to learn Japanese. It's just I'm going to have to wait a little bit. So the plan for right now is that we are nearing the end of June, and I've been studying Spanish using this kind of story learning reading method for the past coming up on about a month and a half-ish. And so what had planned on doing was that I was going to completely stop studying Japanese for the entirety of the rest of the month of May, and then all the way through June. And then on July 1st, I was going to pick Japanese back up again. And not necessarily actively study it, because I don't want to study two languages at a time, but essentially just continue to refresh myself so that I don't forget, or can at least attempt to not forget what I learned. Mostly, I don't want to forget the writing systems, because I got really good at recognizing two of the three writing systems, and I can read it fairly decently. And I don't want to lose that. So the plan moving forward for my actual language learning, before I kind of get into some of the other stuff I'm going to be doing, is that I'm going to study Spanish, solely Spanish, like as of actively studying, while I put Japanese into a semi-maintenance mode for the foreseeable future. I don't know how long this is going to take. I don't know how long I'm going to wait before I start Japanese back up again. If I wait until I'm an intermediate advanced level in Spanish, I don't know. We'll just have to kind of cross that bridge when I get to it. Now, as of kind of like a timeline of some things that I want to have done, I'm hoping that within 6 months to a year of starting using this kind of story learning method, so next May, I'm hoping to be able to be at a fairly high level, like up into the intermediates somewhere. That's kind of the hope. I'm not aiming for advanced within those 6 to 12 months, mostly because I know it can be done, but because of my time constraints, which I'll go over in another video, I don't think it's doable for me. I think a lot of people could do it. For me, it's just not necessarily feasible, I don't think. And so I'm kind of wanted to set a more realistic goal for myself as far as that was concerned. There is also a slightly shorter term goal that I have, which is that, like I said, as of right now, it is almost July. So 3 months from now, in October, my wife and I will be taking our 2 sons, and we will be going to Walt Disney World in Florida. For those of you who don't know, Walt Disney World in Florida has 4 theme parks. One of them is called Epcot, which has multiple different pavilions for different countries that kind of showcase the culture and the people of that country. And it's a really cool area, and we really love being there. Within these pavilions, the cast members that work there are people that are from those countries. The people in the Japan pavilion are from Japan. There's some from Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka. I've met quite a few of them while I was there. There's and then in the Mexico pavilion, there's people from Mexico and other places in Latin America as well as Mexico. And then in the France pavilion, there are people from France and so on and so forth. And so one of the things that I want to be able to do when we go there is I want to be able to have a conversation with some of those Spanish-speaking people in the Mexico pavilion in Spanish. I'm not necessarily looking for it to be like a super high-level conversation, like a super complicated, convoluted conversation. I just want to be able to ask questions in Spanish. I want to be able to go to one of the sit-down restaurants there, because there's 2 of them. One of the sit-down restaurants there, and be able to order our food in Spanish and things like that type of thing. Just like very basic stuff, but be able to actually use it speaking, because like for Japanese, I can't do that really. I know a few phrases that I can actually use and be able to, and I'm able to speak, but that's about it. And I want to get past that point. Now, once we have our trip to Disney World, and we've been to Epcot a few times, and I've possibly been able to have those conversations a few times, that's really going to be the gauge for me of how well studying Spanish this way is actually working, how well studying languages this way is actually working, and it will kind of govern how I end up learning the rest of the languages that I want to learn, whether it's Japanese or German or Italian, French, Mandarin, Chinese, whatever. I will then most likely end up using this same method in order to learn those languages as well. So at this point, I am fully prepared for this journey to take quite a while. I know a language learning journey can take upwards of between 1 year and 10 years, depending on how much time every day you put into studying your language, how much time you have available to put into it, and things like that. But I'm hopeful that I'm not going to have to be one of those people that has to spend 5 to 6 years studying a language in order to get to, an intermediate level. I know that kind of happened with Japanese, and I still didn't get there, but, we already went over that. I was doing it the wrong way. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen again. That's kind of more or less what I'm getting at. I'm just really hoping that isn't going to happen again. So, just a little tiny bit here at the end. I just want to go over a little bit of kind of what else I'm going to be doing on this channel. So, the plan as of right now for this channel is that once a week, every week, I will give I don't know what day I'm going to do it yet, but just once a week, I'm going to give essentially a status update or progress update on how my Spanish studying is going, on what I'm currently reading at the time, how well I feel, how good I'm feeling about it, whether I feel like I'm learning anything, retaining anything, and things like that. Also, like if I decide to watch, an episode of a show or something like that in Spanish, how much of it did I feel like I understood? How much of it was I able to comprehend? And just all that kind of stuff. So that will be once a week, every week. And this is mostly, honestly, for me, it is just a way to hold myself accountable. And I know that especially if, more and more people start watching this, then that holds me even more accountable, because then there's more people that are, expecting this kind of thing to happen. And so it's a way for me to keep myself accountable, and regardless of whether or not anybody actually watches. Just to me, in my mind, if I put this out there on the internet, I put this onto YouTube, then that will kind of get my brain to go, hey, you need to be working on this, because, you have to tell people how it's going, and things like that. So that's kind of the whole idea behind doing those. Also, I am going to be looking at some different language learning programs and applications. I have, somewhat notoriously with my wife, dabbled in numerous different apps and programs and methods and all sorts of different stuff, textbooks, and pretty much everything under the sun. And I still haven't even tapped the surface. But one of the things is that I just really like some of these apps. I like the way that some of them work. They just didn't work for me. And so I kind of want to look at some of these apps and give kind of just an honest opinion on things that I like about them, things that I don't like about them, and why, maybe they didn't work for me, what kind of people they might work for. So I'm going to do some of those videos as well. On top of that, I'm also going to put up videos that are just about the language learning process in general. Just some of the things that I have discovered over the last few years, over the course of the time that I've been studying languages and been studying language learning and doing all this kind of research. Just all the different things that I've kind of come to realize, or that I've learned, and different things like that. Because there's a lot rattling around in my head that I feel like would be useful to some people. And I will never tell anybody how they should learn a language or anything like that. The whole idea is just to give people the information that might help them. Even if it's information that I myself don't use, it's just something that I have, that I've found and that other people have found useful, or something like that. Because, people deserve to have someone who doesn't go, no, this is the method that's going to work for you. Only this method will work for you, or something like that. Because that happens too often. So that is kind of the entire idea of this channel. So, with all that being said, I know this was a little long and rambly, longer and ramblier than I wanted it to be, but thank you. If you stuck around this long, thank you. I appreciate you. And if you are interested in following along on this journey, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below, hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything, and I hope that I will see you all on this journey.